Hello, I am Dr. Kayla Eldridge, back again to talk to you about integrating ethics into decision making. I've done some research on the decision making and ethics, and I am bringing the two topics together to help us leaders make better decisions. So first I want to share a quote that resonated with me during our readings. We make thousands of decisions every day. Many are easy, but others are complex, stressful, or both. Because there are so many decisions and because they are literal forks in the road with dramatic impact on results, costs, time, feelings, and relationships, how you make decisions is extremely important. Next, let's look at a few characteristics of good decision makers. Good decision makers are good listeners. They have clear priorities. They're open-minded, flexible, and realistic. So this is the decision-making action cycle. It's one of the first of a few examples that we have on decision-making. So for this, they talk about you would define a problem, analyze the difficulties of the problem, establish solution criteria, develop a plan, and initiate the plan. UMass came up with 7 steps to effective decision making. Identify the decision, gather information, identify alternatives, weigh the evidence, choose among the alternatives, take action, and review your decision. Then we have ethical decision-making model at a glance. So for this one, they have first to identify the problem, apply the ACA Code of Ethics, determine the nature and dimensions of the dilemma, generate potential courses of action, consider the potential consequences of all the options and determine a course of action, evaluate the selected course of action, and implement the course of action. Here's another quote that I really liked. It is not necessarily the act of making decisions that is so frightening. It is the uncertainty of the results and the repercussion of those decisions that we tend to fear the most. So now I'm going to walk you through my 15 steps for ethical decision making. The first step will be to identify or to define the problem. Step number 2 is to determine the level of your involvement in the decision making. There are time or how urgent the situation is, staff interest in this decision, staff expertise, importance or need for high quality decision, and degree of need for buy-in or support for the decision. Based on any of those things, you could have different levels of involvement in the decision-making process. Step number 3 is to look at the options for involvement. So you could be autocratic, where you decide alone. You could be participative, where you seek participation and input. You could be collaborative with your peers, or you could be laissez-faire and let others decide what's going to happen. With school-based decision making, typically things are parred into either budget, personnel, or curriculum issues. Step number 5, there's types of decisions. So is the decision a major or minor decision? Is it a policy or operations decision? Is it a routine or a strategic decision? Is it programmed or non-programmed? Is it a long-term departmental or non-economic decision? Is it an organizational or a personal decision? Or is it an individual or group decision? All of these types of decisions, again, are going to take into effect who it is that's going to be involved in that decision making. Step number 6 is to gather the information that you have. Step number 7 is to identify those challenges that you might have when you're making a decision. So you may hear too much information or not enough information. You might misidentify the problem, or you may have overconfidence in the outcome. All of those are things to keep in mind. This is one where we're talking about separating out facts from assumptions, suspicions, and biases. So you want to make sure that when you're recording information about your decision that you're going to make, that you have it, that you are keeping in mind what your biases, what your suspicions and assumptions are versus what you actually have as facts. Step number 9 is going to be to identify a solution or criteria. Step number 10 is to identify those alternatives, which is going to be that brainstorming of solutions and options. Step number 11 is to weigh that evidence. What's going to be the best option? Then step 12, you're going to choose and develop your plan. You're going to make sure that the plan that you decide on is going to work for what you're going to be doing. Then you need to take action. Put that plan to work. Step number 14, you're going to review that process. Was your decision a hit? Did you get a bullseye? Or was it a miss where you just didn't quite hit where you needed to go? Step number 15, lastly, is to learn from your mistakes. You're going to make the decision. You're going to take responsibility for the results and then take a step to correct those poor decisions. So component 2.2 is to evaluate, communicate about, and advocate for ethical and legal decisions. So my knowledge of decision making has increased by doing research, synthesizing the research, and then explaining about the research. I was able to evaluate the ethical dimensions of issues regarding decision making by incorporating ethics into the typical decision making process. I communicated my plan to advocate for ethical decisions by incorporating it into my steps for decision making. I did run out of time and wasn't able to get peer feedback, but I will provide some for others in the module. This assignment was relevant to my current learning about leadership because leaders make decisions every day. The assignment has improved my understanding of ethical decision-making steps by having me break it down for others in a presentation. This assignment will influence the decisions I make as a future leader because I will remember to make decisions ethically. Here are my references. And thanks again to Slide Carnival for giving me a template to work with. Have a great night.